It's got all the right ingredients, I think, going forward. So in terms of the team and the ground and the assets. Thank you all for tuning in and having a listen to the Dynamic story. So yeah, Dynamic Metals is IPO that we've released. We released our prospectus on the 17th of November and the offer is open now. And I was just going to give a bit of a run through Dynamic and how it came to be, and let shareholders know how to get involved in terms of on the Jindalee side of things. So essentially, the origin story. So Jindalee Resources has been around since 2002, listed on the ASX. So we celebrated our 20th anniversary this year. And Jindalee's followed a project generation model where we've picked up ground for fairly low entry costs, generally pegging open ground. We've been commodity agnostic, so we've ended up with quite a large and diverse portfolio of assets. The company has a long history of success for shareholders, so long-term Jindalee shareholders would have reaped the rewards previously with a 55-cent dividend paid out back in 2010. But most recently, Jindalee's had some fantastic success with our McDermott lithium project in the United States. So we pegged that as open ground in 2018, been working that up, and now we've got the second largest lithium resource in the United States. But as a result, the portfolio of Australian assets has been sitting here sort of essentially unloved over the last couple of years while we've spent all of our time and energy working up McDermott. And that's kind of led us to this position that we're in right now, where we want to realise value in these Australian assets because they're quite fantastic in their own right, albeit at a completely different stage in their life. So the Dynamic IPO aims to deliver value to shareholders by realising some of the exploration potential that we have here. The project's been valued at about 2.5 million, and Dynamic will be raising between 5 and 7 million over the next couple of weeks. Dynamic, as you can see here, the portfolio has 3 key assets. We've got the Widgie-Multha project about an hour south of Kalgoorlie, prospective for lithium, nickel and gold. We have our Lake Percy project, 100 kilometres to the west of Kalgoorlie there. And then we've also got Deepwell up there near Meekatharra. I'll touch on those 3 key projects as we go through this. Widgie-Multha is located about an hour's drive south of Kalgoorlie. As you can see here, you've got the main highway running down through to Norseman from Kalgoorlie. So our land package highlighted here as the coloured boxes is quite a large land holding. It's about 880 square kilometres. And it's quite well positioned with the main highway and also railway lines going down to the port of Esperance. Quite a large land position. We've got one of the largest land holdings in this area. We've got quite good neighbours. We've got Goldfields and Mincor, Essential Metals working up Cade Lithium project. So in terms of location and neighbourhood, it's quite a good one to be in. All of these tenements here that you see, we have 100% of the rights for all of the minerals. So that means in terms of the lithium, nickel, gold, we can explore for all of them. And most of all, because the area has had a lot of exploration in the past, we've got a lot of data already to work with. So we've been able to do some target generation work over the last 18 months. So we're pretty much ready to hit the ground running in terms of work programs. I'll dive into a little bit of the 3 commodities in this project area just to give you a bit of a feeling, because there is so much going on, so you've got to try work your way through this. So Widgie-Multha, in terms of lithium, it's emerging as a great source for lithium in the area. We've got, as you can see, this is our tenement package up to the north. We've got Mount Marion project, quite well advanced. You've got Bald Hill over here to the east, Baldania down to the south, and then in the middle here around the Sinclair Dome, you have Pioneer Dome, you have the Sinclair Mine and Dome North project that's been worked up at the moment by Essential Metals. So you can see that we're sitting right there in the middle of this Goldilocks zone. You've seen, in terms of exploration potential, on the lithium side, it is a bit different to the nickel and gold because not a lot of historic work has been done. Quite often, any drilling programs were either focused on nickel or gold, so we don't have as much data to work with. As a result, it's sort of we're stepping back to much earlier stage exploration works. It's going to be quite simple. But you can see that the potential to have success in the area is quite good. I mean, we've seen our neighbours up here in the north at Widgie Nickel have recently had some great success with discovering Faraday. And they discovered that by, coming across this large outcropping pegmatite about 600 metres by 25 metres wide. They did some rock chip samples, got results up to 3.7%. And they've been able to move on with drilling quite quickly. And that's one of the things we love about this area, is that you can go from, finding something in rock chips to bringing drill programs online in a very short space of time. So in terms of the lithium and what we're planning on doing, I've zoomed into this area. This is the Widgie Dome, you can see here. And this is the Pioneer Dome that I mentioned earlier. And these are some key hotspots in terms of where we're going to be focusing our lithium exploration. Our immediate priority in the short term is to move forward with mapping and rock chip sampling. There's not much else better we can do than to get boots on the ground and start looking for these things and building up our data sets in terms of lithium. We've got a staged approach. We've already done the data compilation work, as I mentioned, and we've looked for opportunities to find historic drill core in the area. So my previous experience, I started in this area 20 years ago, and I know for a fact that when we came across pegmatite, when we were looking for gold, it got chucked to the side. It wasn't a focus in anyone's mind at that point in time. So there is these opportunities to pull out historic core and do some sampling and maybe get a bit more information there. Surface reconnaissance mapping and sampling, as I said before, is going to be very important to us, to spend a fair bit of time on the ground mapping these things, looking for the outcrops and establishing where we are sitting in terms of the lithium systems, and follow that up with any regional soil and auger programs that can complement a rock chip sampling that happens, and then bring all this target work back together and just define some drill targets that we can follow up with. So, and that will be sort of the basis of next year's work in terms of lithium. A lot of on the ground work to begin with, and then looking through the drill targeting later on in the year. And when we talk about Widgie-Mooltha, this is Kambalda right here, and Kambalda is synonymous with nickel. Nickel was discovered there in the 1960s and has been produced ever since. Our tenements that you can see sit adjacent to a lot of old nickel mines and also currently operating ones. We've got fairly good neighbours in the area. We've got this ground around Cassini up along Strike there, and you've got all the other mines at Wonaway and things like that. We have a lot of historic drill intercepts that we can work with in this area. So example here is the Dawdy Far West prospect. So you can see our prospects are here in the lighter blue colour. So Dawdy, we've got intercepts there, 2 metres at 1.9% nickel at 26 metres depth. So these aren't deep drill holes. They were drilled by Mincor actually in 2007. We believe they've hit disseminated sulfides near surface. So our drill program is going to be targeting deeper down into the fresh rock, looking for massive sulfides. And most importantly, all of our approvals are in place to get some of these drill programs going already. We've already got programs of work. We've done our heritage surveys. We've even dug the sumps on some of them. So we're ready to actually hit the ground running once we're listed. And the goldfields wouldn't be the goldfields without its gold potential. So as you can see here, this map just clearly you can see that there is a lot of gold targets that we've generated, which will also be followed up in due course. We're right in the middle, right next to the St Ives Gold Campus. It's quite a large prolific area. It's produced over 16 million ounces in its lifetime. And we've got a lot of historic intercepts and data that we can work with. As you can see there, 6 metres at 2.7 and 3 metres at 8.64 up at Frank's Find here, which is quite an interesting one because there's actually a metre about 30. So, that's always the kind of information which I find quite exciting to follow up on. So we've got, so I guess in terms of Widgie-Mooltha in particular, you can see we've got quite a depth in our portfolio in terms of the lithium, nickel and gold exploration. So if we were to take a drive about 100 k's from Norseman to the west, heading towards Hyden there, you'll find yourself at the Lake Percy area. Our Lake Percy tenements sort of sit up here in the northern extension of the Lake Johnstone Greenstone belt that you can see through here. Once again, also quite prospective in terms of its lithium potential. The area has been historically targeted for its nickel. You've got some of the nickel mines here, Emily Ann, Maggie Hayes, but there is quite a lot of pegmatites in the region. So, and one of the reasons I know this is because we were out there in March this year for the first time, having a look at the ground, locating the old drill collars, and we were able to see them because you could see the old drill spoils were white. So it was like bright white sticking out of the ground. So that made it easy to locate. So that's, it kind of interfered, I guess, with the nickel targeting program. So we've got a fair bit of work to do there too. We know that there are spodumene bearing pegmatites in the area around here at the Mount Day area, which is about 20 kilometres south of these key tenements here. You've got Charger working up Medcalf down here as well. And we have some anomalous lithium in the historic drill core, and with a lot more work to do there. So we're quite excited about its potential. Lake Percy, as I mentioned, also has its nickel potential. We've got 15 kilometres of ultramafic through here, the Western Ultramafic we call it. So it's quite a large strike length, which we think is going to be quite favourable for nickel. Once again, there's quite a few historic intercepts through this belt, but we've generated another 8 targets through there to be followed up with drilling. We think, its prospectivity is pretty good. We have the data, we have the geophysics, we have geochem anomalies supporting, all the evidence is there. So it's just a matter of getting on the ground and drilling that too. Once again, we're clear to go in terms of executing our drill programs there, with programs of work approved and surveys have been completed as well. And finally, I'll just touch on our Deep Well project. So Deep Well is one of the latest additions to our portfolio. It's located 35 kilometres east-southeast of Meekatharra, along the Nulweeda Greenstone Belt. So this is the southern part of the Nulweeda Greenstone Belt. It's located along quite a large regional structure that runs through here. In terms of exploration, we find this one quite interesting. It's not had a lot of work on it. And this is also a bit different because this is one of the few projects which we didn't peg outright ourselves. We've had it brought to us by a husband and wife team, a geologist and a geophysicist who were doing some work, went on a deep dive of data during COVID lockdown and came up with a few areas like this one. And they went out there and they did some mapping, and they've found these outcropping gossans. So these cover a strike of about 6 kilometres. And they've all anomalous with nickel, copper, and platinum and palladium. And we find that quite interesting because that gives us an indication that there's potential for a bigger system, sort of Julimar style, in terms of its anomalism, and it's undrill tested. So there's been no drill holes that have gone in under these gossans. And that's the kind of work that we're also quite keen to get going on. It's a bit earlier stage in terms of we haven't got our programs of work in place yet. We need to do our heritage survey, so that will come into the drill program a bit later in the year. But it's quite an exciting one that we're looking forward to getting stuck into. As I mentioned, our exploration schedule for next year, we're starting off in Widjimultha, and I'm starting here with the lithium exploration. As I mentioned, it's a lot earlier stage. So I'm scheduling in a fair bit of time to do mapping and sampling of the area, and then we'll work on the target generation later on in the year. RC drilling, we're planning on drilling that Dawdy Far West target as soon as we can. Once we're listed up and running, we'll get the drill rig there, and so we can start getting some news flow happening pretty quickly as well. We've got air core drill programs planned, as you see, Mandilla, Higginsville, Sunday Stoke. They'll all happen in Q2. As we combine these drill programs so we can sort of do them more efficiently in terms of drill rig mobilisation and things like that. We'll look into drilling at Lake Percy. We start at Q2 next year. We've phased the drill program there, so it's a bit of a success-based program. And then, as I mentioned, with Deep Well, we'll work on our permitting and access for the first part of the year, and then by the second half, we'll hope to be straight in there with some drilling as well. In terms of Dynamic and the people behind it, if you're a Jindalee shareholder, you'd be quite familiar with a few of these names. So Justin's coming on board as our chairman. So Justin has been with Jindalee since 2013, comes with a corporate finance background. There's myself as managing director, so I'm a geologist with over 20 years experience. As I said, my first job was there at St Ives in Kambalda, so quite familiar with the area. And I've covered pretty much most aspects of geology in my career so far. And I have a Bachelor of Science in Commerce, and I completed my Master's in Mineral Economics just last year as well. So we have Lindsay coming on board as well as a non-executive director, so representing the Jindalee interests, which I'll go into the cap structure on the next slide. Jimmy Thomas, our exploration manager. So Jimmy has been with Jindalee for 18 months, and he's been focusing on these Australian assets while the rest of us were looking after McDermott. So he's well versed and ready to go. And we've also got Tan Doan coming on as a technical advisor. So Tan's been helping us with our nickel exploration targeting. And as you can see there, he's got quite a good track record of discoveries, particularly around that Kambalda area, the most recent being Cassini. He used to work with Mincor as well. So we're quite happy to have Tan on board and helping us out on that side of things. I'll just briefly touch on the IPO details because numbers, are boring to some people. But the key points of the offer are at 20 cents as an entry price, and that's for all parties getting in. There's been no seed capital raised, so it's quite an even level playing field for all parties. As I mentioned, we're raising 5 to 7 million. Jindalee is going to retain a stake of Dynamic Metals of between 25 and 32%, depending on whether we're at the minimum or the maximum. And you can see a bit of the outline. You can go through it in your own time later, but feel free to ask me any questions on it as well. Key dates. Now, this is quite an important one, and I'm happy to say that so far we're going all right in terms of achieving these dates. We lodged the prospectus on the 17th of November, as I said, and the offer is now open. Yesterday we had our Jindalee AGM, and then it has been approved to dispose of the Australian assets, so we've ticked another box there. Closing date for the priority offer. So Jindalee shareholders have a priority offer for $2.5 million. So this is not a pro rata. You can, as a Jindalee shareholder, you can put in your offer for as much as you like. It's very important. 12th of December is a hard cutoff, and your money will have to be in at that point too. So if you are interested in participating, and you must do your own research, of course, it's just important to note that 12th of December is going to come up quite quickly over the next week as well. The shortfall offer will close on the 16th of December. And then from there on, we'll hope to be listed in early January. So just in summary, investment highlights, hopefully you've seen that we have quite a large extensive portfolio. They're well located here in West Australia, tier 1 jurisdictions. The minerals that we are looking at are quite important in terms of global decarbonisation theme and battery metals thematic that's happening right now. I think COVID has kind of pushed us towards achieving these targets quicker. We have got a lot of exploration targets that we've generated already. We've been working on this land package for 18 months, as I said. So we are ready to hit the ground and start seeing some results. The team behind it has a good track record and highly experienced. As I mentioned, we think the valuation is quite attractive, and the capital structure is fairly tight. There's going to be good leverage to exploration success going forward. So that's it for the main presentation. I sort of went through it, a high level, and happy to always go into a bit more detail where required. But yeah, over to you, Danica.
Thank you, Karen. That was perfect. No, very, very good presentation. I guess first off, for existing Jindalee shareholders, can we run through the priority offer and how they actually go about participating if they choose to?
Yes, so if they choose to, Jindalee shareholders should be getting something in the mail, a little postcard, and hopefully that will be arriving any day now. And there's some simple instructions on there. We are aware that Australia Post is probably not moving as quick as it used to.
Both
So
Christmas as
it's
well.
Christmas as well, and it's flooding as well. They like to blame the flooding over in the East Coast. So, just want to make it clear for Jindalee shareholders that there is a website that they can go through at www.advancedshare.com.au dashboard priority offer login. You can see it right here. So if they go through there, that's where they can enter through the priority offer. Importantly, because I don't think it's completely clear, you need to enter Dynamic up here as a company name, but then enter your Jindalee HINOSRN number. So, it's just might not make perfect sense, but that's the way it is. Your postcode, agree. Once you're through there, it's easy. The application forms and prospectus are there to download. But just as long as, and obviously if there's any problems getting in, contact the share registry or try to contact us here at the Jindalee office, and we'll guide you as much as we can. So yeah, thank you very much. As I said, 12th of December is the date for the closing of the priority offer.
Yes. And Peter did actually send through a question on the Q&A regarding what is the proposed ASX code. So just to reiterate, it's on the screen, but DYM will be the new Dynamic Metals ASX code next year.
Yes, DYM. Yep.
So we did receive a few questions through via the Zoom registration, which I'm going to jump to first. So Liz, and thank you to everyone who did actually send through questions. Karen, you mentioned that you're spinning out the Australian assets to realise the value of these projects for Jindalee shareholders and the wider investment community, I suppose. But Liz has asked, can you summarise the reasons why you chose to do this?
Yeah, no, I can. So there's a couple of reasons. I mean, one is that the two groups of assets, we call them the US assets and the Australian assets, are now at quite different stages. So in the US, McDermott is now quite a large indicated and inferred resource, and we are progressing that through sort of permitting stages, continued resource development. It's got its own quite strong team that it will be building, doing quite different things. Whereas the Australian assets are still quite early stage. We don't have any mineral resources. We're still going back to rock chip sampling and soil sampling. It's just they're two completely different stages in their life, essentially. So that's one of the reasons. It's just in terms of managing those two groups of assets together, it's quite a difficult thing to do. You need to really, like, McDermott deserves a lot of focus because it is, it's fantastic in itself. The Australian assets now, in terms of exploration expenditure, sort of had them on the back burner, I guess, for the last 2 years. But they're at a stage now in their age, which we need to start actually doing work on them, because otherwise they're kind of going to waste. They're fantastic assets in themselves, as you've seen. Like, their location is great, their prospectivity for lithium, nickel, and gold is amazing. And they deserve some work and attention. So this is the best way for the company to progress forward, and for shareholders to see some value coming from these Australian assets. Because at the moment, we don't have a concentrated focus on exploration there in Australia. So if the shareholders would like to see some return on those assets,
Absolutely. The separate focus and having to, the separate focus to unlock the value makes a lot of sense. Russell did ask a little bit, kind of flows on from what we were just talking about, the benefits for Jindalee shareholders. Do you see the spin-off promoting or detracting from the overall share price? Not sure if you've got a crystal ball on.
No, unfortunately, no, I don't have a crystal ball. And, we can't really control what is happening in the market. I think, from last year to this year, there's been a lot of changes for a lot of different companies. But what we can control, and that's our execution of our strategy. And that was part of our strategy a year ago, was to look at separating assets so we could start realising value. The Jindalee shareholders will hopefully realise value by holding on to that sort of 25 to 30% of Dynamic, and being able to watch that grow going forward. But then also, the focus on for Jindalee to be purely focused on that McDermott project. And as you as Jindalee shareholders be aware, like we've had a few board changes recently. We're bringing in, Paul Brown joined us. Well, today his first day actually, with an engineering and development background from Mineral Resources. So we're really pushing that focus. So we're hoping, with a development focused team, that's going to help the Jindalee share price going forward.
And I guess with the retained stake, the Jindalee shareholders have that exposure to any of the, the exploration upside that you're driving forward with that exploration strategy that you've got for 2023.
Yes. Yeah,
and you're in the perfect commodities as well at the moment. So
yeah, I think so.
yeah, really exciting to follow. So I'll move along to a question that we got sent through actually in regard to the 2023 exploration schedule. What are the items you consider to be the key catalysts for generating value for shareholders?
I think what's so good about being in Western Australia in particular is that you can move projects forward pretty fast. In terms of it's only going to take one drill hole, or in the case of the lithium, finding a pegmatite, a decent sized pegmatite, and having some good lithium results. Even in rock chip samples, and that's going to be quite a catalyst for change quite quickly, I think. I'm quite excited to be in that area and
Well, it's going to ask you as a geologist, what targets you consider most exciting, if you have any favourites.
I'm quite excited to see what we've got at Dawdy Far West. So that's the first one that I'm pretty excited about. We've also got what we didn't really mention is in the portfolio, there's a lot of tenements which are granted at the moment, but then we've also probably got 50% of the Widgie-Moolta tenements which are not granted. So in the IPO, we've not included the targets on those ungranted tenements. And there is quite an amazing bunch of targets that are in there. Those tenements will hopefully be granted in the next 12 months. But those ones are pretty good as well. So we have quite a large pipeline. I know a lot of people say that, but we actually do.
And on, you mentioned Dawdy Far West, and you have the RC program coming up. Can you give us a bit more detail about what you're intending to do with this campaign?
Yeah, so we're going to go straight into RC drilling because we've already established that there's nickel around the area, and it's more of just trying to narrow down, and we're sort of targeting the trough structure. So that's where the massive sulfide should sit on the basal contact. So I don't want to get too technical because I'm going to probably lose half the crowd. I'm happy to talk about with geologists. But and that target has been generated by, as I mentioned, Tan Doan in our in the management team there. So Tan works for Mincor before. He was around, when he knows the reasonings behind why Mincor walked away from it previously. So we've got a little bit of inside knowledge there, and so that's sort of what gets me excited by that. And he sees Cassini lookalikes there. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. So expected news flow post-listing. Don't know if you can share with us any insights there. I guess we can look at the exploration schedule and assume that there'll be lots of news flow.
Yeah, well, we should be starting drilling pretty quickly after listing. So that will be straight into that, and then on the ground works as well in terms of the lithium exploration. So drilling will happen pretty quick. So
no extended Christmas holiday for you, Karen. Early stage exploration, huge upside, compelling valuation, all of those things combined, and all the best of luck with the listing in January next year. It's a very exciting time. So thanks, Karen.
No worries. Thank you very much.